Hello, everybody. Do you see the slides? Okay. You see the title here? Always we start with the title and defining the title. It says here deviance and crime. Just as a reminder, deviance means socially rejected behavior. And any socially rejected behavior is not necessarily illegal or legal. Okay? But being socially rejected means that the society doesn't like it, and the society will try to use different methods of social control to minimize it or prevent it. Okay? And also because in the society we have different groups of people who might have different subcultures. Therefore, what a particular group of people considers to be deviant, okay, maybe another group of people don't consider the same behavior to be deviant. Fine. And of course, as we have been repeating several times, what is deviant and not deviant is changing over time. Even in the same society, even the same behavior is changing over time because of the cultural change and because of the social change. So you have many things which people consider now to be normal, while few decades ago they were not considered to be normal and they were socially rejected, and vice versa. There were things happening in the past and they were accepted, but now they are not accepted, and you might be asked questions about examples from real life regarding that. Fine. And also, what is deviant and what is not deviant would change from one situation to another situation. So some behavior might be considered okay and socially acceptable in some situations. Okay, like for example, some forms of clothing might be acceptable in some situations and in some social contexts, but they would not be the appropriate clothes in other social contexts. Okay? About crime. Crime is any behavior that is illegal. Okay, that the criminal law is considering to be a crime, considering it to be illegal. So this what makes it a crime. And based on that, some behavior might be criminalized in some countries and not criminalized in other countries. In some situations and not in other situations. In some provinces and within the same country and not in other provinces. For example, in the US, abortion is considered illegal in some states and considered legal in other states. Okay, in India, the selling of beef is considered illegal in some states and considered legal in other states. Okay, in Canada, you can obtain a driving license in Alberta at a much earlier age than other provinces. Okay, so laws can change even within the same country from one city to another, from one province to another, from one state to another, and they change over time. And also they change with the change in situations. And I remember that the example that we have given in the class, if you are a cashier in the supermarket and you sold cigarettes to a 15 years old teenager, this would be considered illegal, while if you sell the same product to 25 years old person, this is illegal. Okay, so although you are the same person and it is the same supermarket and it is the same job and it is the same product, but the age of the customer would make it legal or illegal. Okay, fine. So now we understand very quickly that meaning of deviance and the meaning of crime, and that they are both of them are changing according to several factors, right? Okay, and I think you can write very well about how, for example, some forms of drugs were illegal in Canada, then they became legalized, and all of the discussion regarding that. Fine, okay? And all societies are doing something called social control, and we have been studying social control again and again throughout the semester. We studied social control when we studied chapter 3 about socialization. Okay, socialization is learning the culture of the society. Fine, but learning the culture of the society doesn't mean that you will necessarily follow this the culture, right? Maybe you learn something and you don't follow it. So all societies and all social groups, they don't like deviance, of course, and the laws in these societies don't like crime. So what societies and social groups are doing is another mechanism beside socialization called social control. And there are two forms of social control: formal social control and informal social control. Informal social control is usually happening through friends and each other, the community members, the family members. Okay. Uh, and in being informal, and I remember also very well that I was asked this question in the class: what makes it formal and what makes it informal? What makes it formal is if it is documented, if it is official. Okay, so that means that it is formal. Okay, so for example, you were given a ticket because you over speeded on the highway. So the ticket is something formal. I give you a particular mark in the course and it will appear in your certificate, which is a formal document. So this is formal. Fine. But informal, like people making fun of you, for example, people are criticizing you, people are isolating you, people are socially excluding you, people are blaming you or praising you, because not all social control is punishments. It can be rewards as well. Okay, so social control is the usage of sanctions. Sanctions are rewards and punishments in order to enforce some form of behavior. Okay, the usage of sanctions, and sanctions are punishments and rewards in order to enforce some form of behavior. This behavior that is enforced may be the culture of the society, maybe the subculture of a social group, maybe even a counterculture of a social group. Like, for example, if you are a member in a criminal gang, for example, and you don't want to participate with them anymore in the criminal activities that they are doing, how are they going to behave and what reaction they are going to do? They will try, probably they will try to force you to keep on joining them in these criminal activities. So this is social control. Okay, because for them, not participating with them in the criminal activities is deviant. Deviant means socially rejected. So yes, if you do the crime with them, it is socially rejected by the society and illegal by the law, right? But if you don't participate with them, it is socially rejected by them, by this group. Okay, you get it? So different groups in the society might have different attitudes towards what you are doing and towards your choices. Any question about that? I hope that this is not confusing. Fine. Okay, so social control is not only used by the society as a whole, it could be used by the school, it could be used by the family, it could be used by a peer group that your peer group, for example, are going doing outings, and during the outings they do some activities that you don't like, so you don't like to participate with them, so they get angry from you, so next time they go out, they ignore you and they don't invite you to go out with them. So this is a kind of punishment, okay? Because they didn't like some behavior that they consider to be deviant. You consider you to be deviating from the behavior that they are doing. You get it? Okay? So social control is a process, is the mechanism of enforcing some form of behavior on individuals. Okay, through sanctions, and sanctions are rewards and punishments, and there are two kinds of rewards and punishments: the formal and the informal. The formal is the official and the documented, and the informal is not official, not documented, but more influential. Why more influential? We also explained last class that there is a theory which is branching from the control theory called the social bonding theory. And the social bonding theory means that if that the individuals who are attached to their community and to their families are statistically, according to the statistics, they are less likely to do crime and deviance. Okay, and the ones who are disintegrated from their families and their community, they are more likely to do crime and deviance. Why is that? If you are attached to your family and community, you care about them, they care about you, you don't want to upset them, you don't want to do a behavior that would disgrace them. Okay, they observe your behavior, they give you advice. Okay, so this is informal social control. Yes, Cassandra.
Did you say that that was social bonding theory?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Okay, and social bonding theory is under the control theory. Fine. Okay, please, if you have any question at any time, just stop me and ask. You have here in the objectives, understand the socially constructed nature of deviance and crime is very important in every single chapter, that we keep on reminding ourselves that no social behavior is genetically or biologically inherited. But social behavior is socially constructed. Social behavior is happening through because of social factors, including deviant behavior and criminal behavior. All social behavior is socially constructed. Okay, fine. So all of them happen because of some social factors, maybe factors related to childhood, raising the person up during childhood, related to the peer group that the person is attached to, related to the media that the person is exposed to, related to the workplace, related to any agent of socialization. Okay, but not born with the person. What is born with the person is biological features only, biological characteristics only, genetic things only. But this is not related to behavior. Behavior is not born with us. And the very repeated question that why some individuals are behaving exactly like their families. That's not because they are not because these families are biologically their families, but because they were the first agent of socialization, which is called primary socialization, which is the most influential on the personality. Okay? So again, this relationship, this impact is a social impact, not a biological impact. Fine. Now, uh, in general, people through socialization are learning norms and mores and folk ways. We explained all of that, but please ask me to repeat if you need. Uh, we understand what is deviance, what is social control, and what is formal and informal social control. And take care. Sometimes a formal organization might do informal social control. Like, for example, if the police stop you on the highway while you are over speeding, but they don't give you a ticket, they just speak with you verbally about the wrong behavior that you have done. Okay, without recording anything. If nothing is recorded, so it is not formal, even if the police is formal. Okay, fine. So sometimes formal organizations might do informal behavior. Okay. identity as deviance, it means here that sometimes if you might be famous with doing a particular deviant behavior or a particular crime, so people refer to you by it. So it is not just that some person has done something socially rejected once or did a crime once, but it became like something significant in their personality or like a career. Okay, and sometimes this is called master status. Okay, here they are giving example about tattoos. For a very long time, most families in so many societies refused tattoos and considered them to be a kind of deviance. But because of the social change and the cultural change, and I remember that Kalia has given or maybe not Kalia, maybe no, she was not Kalia, she was another one who gave an example about that during her presentation. Okay, that was last time in the class. But anyway, the social attitude towards tattoos is changing to some extent. Yes, some families didn't change, but some families have changed. So some families were considering it to be totally socially rejected, but some families now consider it to be not socially rejected, but just not preferred. Okay, you get it? So so maybe a couple of generations ago, they would have considered their children to be doing a very major mistake if they do it. But now they still don't like it, but they might appease it. Okay, we get it. So again, uh, this is just an example, but there are so many other examples. Like for example, the age of marriage. The age of marriage is changing very much from time to time, socially and legally. Okay. Of course, deviance is relative and also crime is relative. The word relative here means that they are changing from one social context to another, from one situation to another, from one country to another, from one society to another. This is the meaning of the word relative, and we should be able to write about that, because usually if there are essay questions or short answer questions, they might be discussing things like that, in which people are relating between what we learn and real life. Okay, so train yourself to give examples, real life examples about everything. Criminology. You know what is crime? Crime is anything that is banned by law. Okay? But criminology is the scientific discipline that is studying the factors which impact the types of crime, the rates of crime, the patterns of crime, and the laws which should be used to prevent crime. Okay, so this is called criminology, and criminology is a whole scientific discipline. At OC, we are having a whole department for criminology. Okay, in which they are having criminology itself developed from sociology. Okay, but it developed to the extent that it became a whole discipline by itself called criminology. And from criminology, we are having another discipline that is born from criminology called victimology. Victim means the person who gets harmed by crime, okay, like gets killed or raped or whatever. And so this is the victim, and victimology is the scientific study that is studying the factors which lead to more or less victimization. Okay, and the types of victimization. Victimization means the process of committing a crime against a person, so this person gets harmed in a way or another. So this is victimization. Okay, the science which is studying that is called victimology. Anything ends with ology means a scientific study that is based on research of something, of a particular discipline. Sociology, anthropology, Egyptology, biology, whatever ology means that it is a scientific study that is based on research. Okay? And the first part of the word will talk about what is the discipline that is being studied. Okay? So this is criminology. Okay, you see, this chapter that you are studying right now, it grew up until it became a whole department. Crime versus deviance. We repeated that so many times, but it's very important to know that not every crime is deviant and not every deviant behavior is a crime. Sometimes they are both at the same time. Like, for example, if you are stealing from your neighbor and you get exposed in the neighborhood, people will consider you to be a very bad person, and this is going to be socially rejected. So it is deviant, and at the same time, it's illegal. So it is illegal crime and socially rejected. It is deviant. Okay, but it is not necessarily deviant every time you do something illegal. Like, for example, if the maximum speed on the highway is 100 and you are driving on 110, people might be fine with that. But this is still breakage of the law. Okay. However, if people are fine with it, therefore they don't consider it to be deviant. Okay, fine. And remember, what's the opposite of deviance? Conformity. Conformity is doing what people do. Like, for example, if you remember the social experiment that we have watched at the very beginning of the course, the girl who went into the clinic and she was standing up whenever she was hearing the beep, and how she passed this to the other people who came into the clinic later on. She said that I was doing that in order to conform to the people around me because I didn't feel comfortable when I was different from everyone. Okay, so sometimes people conform and they avoid being deviant just to not be odd, not because they want to do a particular behavior. Okay, or not because they are convinced, not because it is necessarily making sense to them. Sometimes people follow, and if you remember, the title of that video was "Most People Are Sheep." Okay, fine. Victimless crimes. Not every crime is hurting or harming a particular person. Some crimes are illegal, but they don't have victims. Like, for example, the possession of something that you are not allowed to possess, like drugs or whatever thing that the law is banning you from obtaining or from having, but you have it, so it is a crime, but you didn't harm any person with this behavior. So this is victimless crime, like gambling, like the possession of drugs, and so on. Okay, fine. Please remember to ask whenever you have a question. We have a very big problem in criminology and in victimology that so many crimes don't get reported. Okay? Crimes like murder and kidnapping are likely to be reported to the police, but there are some other forms of crimes, such as drugs and robbery and sexual assaults, are less likely to be reported, right? And there are several reasons for that. There is something called the crime funnel. If you look at the picture here, you will find that the real number of crimes that is happening in the society is a very huge number, and this number is nobody knows. Why? Because not all crimes were reported. Therefore, it is a dark figure. If you see the top of the funnel here, it is a dark figure. Okay? And then fewer crimes get reported. And fewer crimes of the ones which got reported, they actually, the doers get punished. Okay, you get it? So you'll find that the very bottom of the funnel, that very few people of the actual criminals are getting actually punished for the crimes that they have done. Okay, which is very terrifying. That means that there are so many criminals that nobody knows that they are criminals, and there are so many crimes that don't get stopped, and when they are done, they don't, the doers don't get punished. Okay, fine. And that's why, if you are studying criminology, this piece of information uh, is not very important in a sociology course, but reports, official statistics, which are built on the reporting crimes, shouldn't be the only source of knowing about the number of crimes. But there are other sources that, like surveys. Some surveys are called self-reporting surveys, okay, and victims surveys and observation, okay. So there are other sources other than reporting to the police, through which the people who are studying criminology should use. Now, we find here in this slide a very important example: sexual assaults in particular. They don't, they usually don't get reported. Yes, some of them get reported, and that's how we know about them, but they usually don't get reported. And I want you to tell me the reasons why sexual assaults in particular usually don't get reported. Because there are so many reasons, not one or two or three or four or five, so many reasons. So, yes, Maria.
I think it's because most of the time they just need like a piece of evidence to prove that what you're saying is it's like what it is. So most of the people just prefer to be on silent for
Oh,
that reason.
okay, this is a very important reason, of course, lacking evidence. Thank you, Alex.
I would say fear would be a huge one.
Yeah, there are different kinds of fear: fear from the society, or fear from the criminal, or fear from the legal consequences. Fear from what exactly? This, the word fear can be like three or four reasons.
I mean, that's it, right? I mean, it would be fear
Which
for,
kind of fear came to your mind?
I would think fear of societal pressure, thinking that you're lying, essentially. You know, people not believing your truth, even though it is true. I think that was the first one that
Okay.
came to mind.
Okay, very good. And sometimes the fear is the fear from social blaming, because it's very common. There's something called blaming the victim. Blaming, we know the victim, but we don't know the criminal. Okay, so it in some cases it would be much easier to blame the person that we know rather than blaming the person that we don't know. And usually the victim is weaker, and also it is much easier to blame the weaker person rather than blaming the more powerful person. Okay, so this is called victim blaming, and that's why some victims don't expose themselves to the society, because they are afraid from this victim blaming. Okay, fine. There are other forms of fear. It can be fear from the criminal, from the threats that the criminal usually is either physically more powerful or financially more powerful, or having some authority, or maybe a member in the family. Yes, Cassandra.
When you were talking about victim blaming, were you talking about like if somebody got raped and somebody would be like, well, they dressed provocatively? Is that what you
Yeah,
mean?
Yes, this is a very good example of victim blaming. Yeah. So they are using personal behavior as a kind of, not as justification of the crime, but saying to the victim, you caused this crime to happen to you. Okay? And that would make the other victims afraid from reporting the crime. And of course, that would have very bad social consequences, because in this case, the crime can't be stopped and it will keep on growing. Okay, thank you. Okay, guys, there are so many other examples, but I will leave it to your general knowledge and imagination. Police reported crimes. Yes, it's a very important but not fully accurate source of information. Okay, very important, but people who are studying criminology, they are taking it as just one of the sources, not as the only source that they depend on. Okay? Now, the nice part of every chapter, which is the theories. Okay? The most important part. In 1600s in Europe, people focused on supernatural causes. People at that time, they believed in they extensively. Still, some people are having these beliefs, but at that time they only focused on supernatural factors and on superstitions. Like they believed, for example, that the ones who are doing crime, they are doing crime because of some demonic factors. Demonic means evil spirits that are haunting the individuals and living inside them and making the individuals do evil behavior or criminal behavior or whatever. That's how they were interpreting why would someone do crime, and they believed that these evil spirits come in the person because of the magic that the witches are doing. Okay, and therefore they were doing some crazy things at that time, like for example digging holes in people's, in criminals skulls, for so the demons or the evil spirits will drilling holes in not digging, drilling drilling holes in people's skulls so the evil spirits will go out, and burning the witches, thinking that when they burn the witches, the magic that the witches have done will also get burnt. Okay, and the victims who are criminals, but they are victims because now they are haunted by the evil spirits. Okay, they will get cured and they will not become criminals again. Okay, so there was no scientific, and of course you know that at this period in many history books call this period the dark ages of Europe. Okay, fine. But later on, you know, that the Renaissance happened, then the scientific revolution, then the industrial revolution, people became more educated. They started, okay, to have logical thinking, and that led to the birth of a very important school in criminology called the Classical School of Criminology. The Classical School of Criminology. Okay, and this was started in the early 1800s and in the late 1700s. Okay, the Classical School of Criminology. What was the Classical School of Criminology saying in brief? Of course, I would need several classes to just talk about this theory. But what was the main idea of the Classical School of Criminology? And by the way, the Classical School is not it was not a theory. It led to a theory called the rational choice theory. Okay, but the Classical School of Criminology in general it was saying that every person is a rational thinker, and every person cares about gaining advantages and gaining benefits and avoiding the disadvantages and avoiding the expenses and minimizing the costs. Okay? And it said that the crime, as every other social behavior, people do it when they think that they will gain from it more than what they will lose. Okay? And therefore, every human is responsible for his or her choices, because these choices were based on rational thinking. You get it? Okay, fine. And this theory led to a very important, this school produced a very important theory called the rational choice theory. Okay, and I think the name of the theory is explaining the theory. Rational means that the decision of whether you choose to do a particular behavior or another behavior, even if the behavior that you have chosen was a criminal behavior, okay, was based on rational thinking, was based on a comparison between the cost and the benefit. What would be the costs in case of criminal behavior? The cost would be the punishment, right? And what is the benefit? The benefit is whatever materialistic or psychological benefit that you will get. Okay? Materialistic, like for example, you would steal a particular jewelry or an amount of money or some materialistic gain. What is psychological? Like, for example, you are taking revenge from someone and you will feel satisfied when you harm that person in a way or another, like killing or whatever kind of harm. Okay? So, in both cases, this is from the point of view of the criminal, this is the benefit. Okay? And what is the cost? The cost is the punishment. Okay? So, if the punishment is greater than the benefit, rational thinkers would decide to not go ahead with the idea, with the criminal idea that they have in their mind. Okay? And if the benefit is greater than the punishment, that would encourage them to go ahead and do the crime. As simple as that. Therefore, according to this theory, the only successful way to prevent a crime is to have severe, swift, and certain punishments. Okay? To have severe, swift, and certain punishments. They have to be severe. Why severe? Because when they are severe, they are doing something called deterrence. What is deterrence? Deterrence is to make the people who are thinking about crime, just thinking about crime, afraid from the consequences of crime, so they don't do it. Okay, so let's say, for example, that Scott did something illegal and he was caught. And everybody observed him receiving a very severe punishment that made everyone else thinking about the same behavior afraid from the consequences. So that would minimize the number of similar illegal behavior that would happen in the society. And certain means that it will definitely happen, that the punishment will definitely happen, because sometimes the person gets caught, but the courts are very lenient in allowing the lawyers to play with the loopholes in the system. Okay? And swift means quick. not the crime happens today and the punishment would take place 10 years later. Okay, so if these three, according to this theory, if these three things happen, the crimes would be much less, and if these three things don't happen, crimes would be much more. Okay, and just imagine a person who is thinking about robbing a bank, and the financial benefit that he would get if if this illegal mission successful would be $10 million. And in case, and there's 50% chance that he might get caught. Okay, and even if he gets caught, there's 50% chance that he would be punished. And even if he gets punished, the punishment would be 6 months in jail. Do you think in this case that would encourage that person to go ahead with the crime and do it or not? What do you think? What do you think, Scott?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Okay, if a person is planning to go and rob $10 million, and the punishment in case the person gets caught would be just 6 months in prison. That would encourage him to do it or not to do it?
Is that encouraging him to do it or not to do it?
Yeah, what do you think?
I mean, personally, if I had the chance to like rob a bank for $1 million and I was only facing 6 months, I mean, if there was if I could keep it, maybe, but like, I think that would just entice a lot of people to just go rob banks if the punishment.
Okay, so thank you very much. And this is exactly the idea over the rational choice theory, that this punishment is not severe. This punishment, and because it is not severe, it would encourage the ones who are still thinking about crime to be encouraged and do the crimes.
Well, that's what's happening today with BC as well, with the justice system, the catch and release.
Yes, right. And that's why so many people criticize that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Very good. You see, guys, that's what I'm always talking about, to connect the theories that we are studying with the reality and with the real life that is happening in the society. Very good connection. Thank you very much. Okay, so the catch and release here is exactly the opposite of the rational choice theory. Okay, this is not an example of the rational choice theory. It is an example of what the rational choice theory is criticizing. Okay, so the rational choice theory says that when a person gets caught with a crime, the punishment should be severe, should be certain, should be swift, and it should be greater than whatever benefit the person got from the crime. Why? Because that would lead to something called deterrence. What is deterrence? That the other ones who didn't do the crime yet, but they are thinking about it, they would say, no, we are not going to risk our lives and our freedom and our future by doing this silly behavior, okay? Because we are going to ruin our lives if we do that. So they will be afraid from the consequences and they will decide to not do it. Okay? So this is the rational choice theory. What are the criticisms against the rational choice theory? Simply that not all people are rational thinkers. Okay? And even the rational thinkers, they are not rational 24/7. Even if you think about your own choices in life, let alone crime, okay? Are all of your daily decisions rational decisions? Okay, let's think, for example, about the food that you are eating. Okay, are you always making rational choices based on health benefits and advantages and disadvantages? No. Okay? The same thing for any other behavior. Not all people are rational thinkers. Not all people are using their mind before doing any decision. And the factors why they are not using their minds are different. They might be drunk, they might be under the impact of drugs, they might be extremely angry to the extent that that is blinding their minds. Maybe they are extremely overexcited about something. Maybe they are under the influence of an overwhelming pressure group, okay, or peer pressure. There are several reasons, okay, why the person might not rationally think. So practically speaking, this theory is a very successful theory. However, as any other theory, it has its own weaknesses because it is not applicable on every case and on every person. Okay, fine. Now, the biological approaches. The 19th century was a peak, and I need all of your attention, please, guys. The 19th century was the peak of colonialism, and it was the peak of capitalism. Take care. It was a peak of colonialism. It was a peak of capitalism. It was the peak of ethnocentrism, and I hope that you know every word I'm talking about. It was the peak of ethnocentrism, and it was a peak of racism. Okay? Colonialism, capitalism, ethnocentrism, racism, and classism. Okay? Fine? At that time, there was a very wide misconception that not all humans are equal humans, that not all humans are in the same stage of humanity. At that time, Charles Darwin's theory about evolution was very famous and very popular. Okay? And some people misinterpreted this theory, and they said, therefore, not everyone who looks like a human evolved to a real human, but some ones are still not humans, but they might evolve into humans thousands of years later. Okay? And who are the real humans? They are us. People who look like us, people who are in the same class like us, with the same biological features like us. These are the ones who evolved to the stage of humanity. Okay? Fine? And at that time, when you already have a misconception, and then some scholar comes to you and tells you that I did a research and I have a scientific study which confirms the misconception that you have in your mind. Of course, they will not call it misconception, okay? But they will tell them that I have, like, for example, like if a doctor now, if you are a smoker, and a doctor comes and tells you, look, I found a study which says that smoking is good for health, and it is not true that it is bad for health. You will be very happy with this research, right? Why? Because it confirms what you want to hear, right? So at a stage of life or at a historical period when people were considering that racism is a very normal behavior and it was not illegal at that time, and classism is normal and discrimination is normal, and classism is normal, and ethnic discrimination is normal, and ethnocentrism is normal. They wanted to believe that there are some individuals who are born as criminals and some people who are not born as criminals. And the ones and those others who don't look like us, they are born like as criminals. Okay, and here Cesar Lombroso, I see you, Haley, and I will come to you now. Cesar Lombroso, he was an Italian physician. Okay, he produced this theory called biological determinism, and he was believing in positivism. We explained what is positivism before, but I will explain again. Yes, Haley.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. But it's 10 minutes past and I just like I have an appointment to go to. I know that maybe some people are
Okay,
okay
no
with
problem,
staying.
no
I just
problem. No problem at all. Thank you very much for that. But if you can wait, please, until I just take the attendance, that would be, or you can go, and Cassandra would remind me at the time of taking the attendance. Okay, fine.
okay,
And
I'll try my best to wait.
okay, no
I just
problem.
thought I'd let you know. I didn't want to interrupt
Okay.
you also just in case other people have to be
Thank you very
somewhere.
much. I really appreciate that very much. So please, Cassandra, when
Okay.
I take the attendance, you remind me, and I will try to be a bit more quick. Okay, I will try to
Okay.
speed up, and then if you have questions, stop me and ask. Cassandra, yes,
Sorry, what do you want me to remind you to take attendance?
that Haley was here when I take the attendance.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay,
I'll
so
I'll try
yeah,
my
yeah.
best to stay. It's just I have to leave my house in like 5 minutes.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Thank you very much, Haley, and thank you for attending today. And I hope that I know that I'm very slow in explaining things, but I just trying to make the information stick in the mind. Okay,
I'm so
fine.
sorry. I also have my class test for the next, so I'm already in class. So can I just?
Okay, I'll tell you, Cassandra. Can I ask you for a favor, please? Can be the record keeper, please. Okay.
For sure. I have paper. So
Thank you.
Haley, and who was the other one? Should I remind you of?
Kashish.
Okay.
Kashish? Kashish, okay.
Wait. I will make it easy for everyone. Look, I'm just taking. I have here the list of names of the ones who are attending. I took a picture. Don't worry about anything, Cassandra. Okay, I will take the attendance later on based on this list of names. Whoever wants to leave, they can leave without permission. And I'm recording this session anyway, and I'm going to post it. I know that we exceeded the time, okay, but I think it would be very useful to finish this. Thank you very much, guys. And okay, what is positivism? Positivism, very simply, is depending on a kind of research which is only acknowledging quantitative data, numerical data, statistical data, without looking at the qualitative information that might be leading to this quantitative data. Okay, so Cesar Lombroso decided to. He believed that that people are not all people are humans. Okay, are not fully humans, and even the ones who are fully humans, some of them are born as criminals, and this is called biological determinism. Okay, and he believed that that individuals who are born to be criminals are having skeletal features which are resembling animals. So basically, he thought that some humans are even looking like humans, and some of them are resembling animals. And this is very racist. Okay, who are the ones who are resembling animals in his point of view? Of course, the ones who are having features which are different from the features that he was used to observe in his own society. Okay, and at the peak of colonialism, when the Europeans had social contact with so many other races across the globe, okay, he considered some of them to be having skeletal features which are resembling animals. And he believed that there were some individuals who were born as criminals. Again, what is crime? crime is the behavior that is illegal. So what is deciding what is a crime and what is not a crime? The laws. The laws are made by whom? The laws are made by people in power. Okay, fine. So for example, I think we talked about this example so many times. Some foreign power invades your city, invades your country, and they steal your house. According to the, now they are the power, right? And they are the ones who will make the law. Okay, so if you resist, if you fight back, according to the law, are you a criminal or not a criminal? According to the law, are you criminal or not? You are a criminal. Okay, and now they are the ones who are being aggressive and bloody, and they are coming to kill your children and occupy your land and steal your house. But according to the law, are they doing a crime? No. Why? Because it is, they are the makers, they are the legislators of that law. Okay, and we have given so many examples of so many countries, like for example, at the time of Mahatma Gandhi in India, at the time of the British occupation, it was illegal for people to make their own clothes. It was illegal for them to go to the ocean and take the salty water to make salt. That was illegal because that was monopolized by the British companies. Okay, fine. The people in power are the ones who are making the law. How that is related to the biological approach? So people with this biological approach mentality, with the biological determinism mentality, will come and look, these people are savages. They are fighting, they are violent, they are aggressive. Why? Because they are defending themselves, because they are fighting back. Okay, so according to this mentality, in order to be civilized, they should just submit and surrender and say to the occupiers, you are most welcome. Okay, so Cesar Lombroso started measuring the skulls and the skeletons of people who die in jail and people in the Italian army who die. Okay, and comparing the sizes of the skulls and comparing the sizes of the skeletons, and this was, according to him, these measurements were used as data, as positivist data, that at his time that was making sense to him, that would prove the differences between the ones who are born as criminals and the ones who are not born as criminals. Okay, you get it? So we have many problems with this theory. Number one, that there is no definite proof that what was considered crime at his time was actually an evil behavior. Okay, we don't have a definite proof that the people in jail were actual criminals. Maybe they went to jail because they were racial minorities or ethnic minorities, or because they were poor people, or because of whatever other reason, or because they were resisting unfairness and oppression and occupation. Okay, we get it? Okay, so the biological approach in sociology, nowadays we know that it doesn't make sense. However, some modern versions of the biological approach, they say yes, Cesar Lombroso was racist and the classical biological approach of the 19th century was not making sense. But nowadays we know that some diseases, some biological diseases might cause criminal behavior. Yes, that's true. But we cannot generalize that. It might, some diseases might have different impacts on different individuals. Okay, so whatever example we'll use, this is an individualistic example, not a general example. Okay, fine. William Sheldon was another follower of the biological approach, and he said that people who are masculine they are more aggressive, and they are more violent, and they are more likely to do physical crimes. Okay? And again, the background of this theory was a kind of prejudice against the working class. Because at the beginning of the 20th century, who were the muscular people? Okay, nowadays the rich people are going to the gym, right? But that was not happening at the beginning of the 20th century. Okay, who were the muscular people? They were the working class people. Okay, so there was a misconception that whenever a violent crime happens, the first ones who get suspected are the working class ones. Okay, fine. Okay, guys. Functionalism. And I want you to pay attention very, very much here. Functionalism cares very much about social stability, right? There are sub-theories under functionalism. The first one is called the social disorganization theory. Yes, Scott.
Hi, I have to go somewhere right now. Is it okay? Like,
don't worry at all. I said that you don't need permission, and thank you very much for that. Whoever wants to leave, they can leave without permission. And I already took a screenshot of the ones who were attending from the very beginning, and I will take the attendance later. Okay? Don't worry. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Under functionalism, we have several sub-theories. The first one is called the social disorganization theory. Okay? And the second one is called the control theory. And the third one is called the strain theory. And the fourth one is called the Chicago School of Criminology. Okay, fine. Do you mind if we continue these theories at Thursday? Okay, before the makeup exam? Because they are very important theories and I want everyone to pay attention to. Okay, the social disorganization theory, the control theory, the strain theory, and the Chicago School of Criminology, and all of them under functionalism. And then we have the critical approach, right? And then we have symbolic interactionism. And under symbolic interactionism, we are going to have two theories. One of them is called labeling, and the other one is called differential association theory. Okay? Thank you very much. And I will stop the recording now. Okay? And now